Welcome to the Reboot Chronicles, connecting you to the world's top leaders and CEOs rebooting their organizations and themselves with revealing stories to help you prosper in unprecedented times. I'm your host, Dean DeBias, and as a serial CEO who's led dozens of companies that created thousands of jobs and billions in revenue, my passion is uncovering powerful lessons that can inspire you to reboot your organization, your career, and your life. Listen and subscribe wherever you get podcasts or at rebootchronicles.com. I'd like to welcome Josh Bersin to the Reboot Chronicles. He is one of the world's most closely followed analysts on HR and the future of work. He founded Bersin Associates, which he sold to Deloitte, and after his time there as a partner, he started the Bersin Company, an independent human advisory firm, and the Josh Bersin Academy, an executive networking and co-learning community with over 50,000 members, probably more than that by now. Josh's latest book, Irresistible, is fantastic. I just went through it last night with 7 future-forward secrets on building more employee-focused organizations. Josh, it's good to see you.
Thank you, Dean. It's great to be here.
So much to talk about and what's going on in especially large organizations today. What do you think is the biggest challenge is facing CEOs and these massive companies these days?
Well, I mean, other than the economy and political stuff, by far the biggest issue is AI, and how do companies use it to change products and services and jobs and roles, and what is the role of IT, and what is the role of various vendors, and what is going to be the right platform? I mean, this is everybody's asking about it, and the reason it's so disruptive is every month it seems to change. So, 1 month Microsoft is the big thing, the next month Anthropic is the big thing, the next month Google is the big thing. So companies are really, and they know how impactful it will be on their products and services to customers and their internal employees, but they're not really sure how to get there from here. So it's really a fascinating time of reinventing companies around what we call the age of intelligence.
Yeah, well said. I've probably written a dozen Forbes articles on this in the last 6 months, which is a lot. And it it is. It's all the big dogs fighting, all the big dog vendors one-upping each
Yep.
other. And I tend to tell people, when I'm doing talks or helping CEOs, it's like, the difference between empowering your employees and replacing them, there's a lot of confusion in there, and then depending on what vendors are telling them, you just hit it spot on. I've never seen IT and technology be such a hot topic for everyone in the C-suite. It used to be a couple people. Now it's everyone's all over it.
Yep.
I'm not sure that's a good thing, but yeah, maybe walk me through how you guys are thinking about this whole, redesigning work, which you guys invented, I think, versus re-engineering work, and how do you think about that in the organization over the next 5 years or so? I know 5 months is even hard at this point.
Right. Well, I mean, the theme we're putting out is what we call the rise of the super worker, because what's happening to all of us, now the white collar workers as well as the blue collar workers, is the tools and the technologies like AI are eliminating more and more routine things that we, now call routine that didn't used to be routine, and
Exactly.
changing the way we get our jobs done. And that eventually changes what this job is. So, the framework that we're currently using is there's two sides. There's improving the productivity of the job you have as it was defined, and that could be using generative AI or a tool that does work for you, but you have the same job title, you have the same job level, you have the same pay. So now you're a software engineer where a lot of the code is being developed by the AI. You're a customer service agent, and a lot of the problem solving is done by AI. You're an HR person, and a lot of the interviewing and assessment is done by AI. But you have the same job as you did before. But then after you get that process started, you sit down as a group and you say, well, wait a minute, why are we even set up this way? Maybe we don't even need this job of what you used to call a scheduler or an editor or a marketing copywriter or whatever. And
Yep.
maybe that job is is a very different job, and where you're managing and, in a sense, supervising the AI agent and teaching the agent how to be better and better and more scalable. And now you've become a super worker. And I think this is happening to every single white collar worker everywhere. And ChatGPT just opened up this Pandora's box of people saying, wow, I used to do this by hand. I'm not doing it by hand anymore. So what am I going to do with all my extra time? Well, I'm going to spend more time tweaking the thing that the AI is doing, or I'm going to spend more time talking to people, learning about what I should be spending time on to add more value in new ways. And that, mental exercise is going on in every single company I talk to, very much in HR too, within HR, where there's a lot of bureaucracy and administrative work to do.
Yeah, exactly. I was talking to a group of CEOs before about a month ago, and the whole idea of smart agents and co-pilots and a lot of window dressing, a lot of what of them call it, lipstick on a pig. They're trying to alter current programs like Word or something, versus Agentic, which is taking it to the next level. And so I basically described it to them as, okay, so phase one is great. We all got to play with things. There's 1,000 vendors for every vertical or whatever department you just talked about, which is overwhelming. But then on the agentic side, it's like these are things where these agents can actually do the work and do things. And that's where they get a little confused. It's like, does it replace the people that I have? And our thought was in some cases, yes, but in most cases, as you said, it makes them a super duper worker.
Well, and
And
new jobs end up getting created.
yeah, how should they think about that?
So here's the way I see it. So I think most people don't have enough imagination yet to really see the potential
Yeah,
of these agents. I mean, even the stuff that Salesforce is putting out there is fairly tactical. Um, so if I think of a McDonald's where you go in and you order on a kiosk, as an example, or a recruiter, and I obviously talk to recruiters all the time. You could say, let's automate the process of writing a job description.
right.
Well, that's actually just a writing project. But the real project isn't writing the job description, it's interviewing the manager and interviewing the people in the team to get the input on what the job is, and then using the information about the company's culture and the company's pay policies and the company's language to write the job description in a much more holistic way. So let's imagine that the agent interviewed everybody in the group, looked at the company documentation, and then went into the marketplace and looked at the jobs like this and what they're called and what they're leveled and what cities they're in, and then wrote the job description. Now the agent is doing something that might take weeks and weeks for a person to do in a much more integrated way. And now that it's developed this very deep job description with all sorts of information underneath it, as candidates apply, the agent can do a much more intelligent analysis of who's a good fit and go back to the human and say, here's 20 people that look like a good fit. Here's the criteria for this person versus that person. Now the human is literally supervising the AI and adding value on top of it. So the human doesn't go away, because obviously you're not going to let the machine decide who to hire. But the amount of data that can be brought into that decision is so much greater than it would have been by hand. And that, I think, applies to everything retail. I mean, I was thinking about this idea of going into a McDonald's and ordering on the kiosk.
Right.
Why wouldn't the McDonald's agent say, oh, hey, Josh, welcome back. Last time you were here, you ordered such and such. And I noticed that, we're selling a whole bunch of these things today. You seem to like so and so. And on Tuesdays, you always come in a little bit late. How about this as something to eat today? Right? I mean, these agents are going to get so smart so fast about these business problems. Then there's going to be all these human jobs around training the agent, monitoring the agent, feeding the agent with the right information. And I think this is going to be good work. I think there's going to be higher level jobs, higher paid jobs. But we have to just get through this design process of designing these new jobs.
Yeah, you triggered a lot of things there. But I just thought of a new job. It could be a referee where I have to referee what the agents are doing behind our back, and because they'll be making decisions with each other versus
That's right.
So it's a little bit further down the road, but you said something very interesting is certain people that got you here are not necessarily the ones that have the imagination or creativity or understanding or comprehension of what could this be. For
Right.
instance, my Kellogg class, which is an in the field innovation group 10 years ago, maybe 8, actually did the work for McDonald's and came up with two things, the app idea and the
Hmm.
kiosk. And everyone that was in the senior executive team that came to the presentations said that'll never work. Both of them. Both of those will never work. Can't do an
Right.
app, can't order in advance, or food sucks when it's cold. 15 excuses. And eventually it got there. And it's a reimagining, an overused term, the workforce. How do you help people do that? Because it's tough,
The
whether it's a
thing,
customer facing thing or an internal HR thing.
I think you need people. First of all, I think we're all going to get better at it as we understand what these things are capable of. Because a lot of us are still thinking these things as search engines, but um, I'm not necessarily going to say I'm a huge fan of Elon Musk. But when I read his book,
Yep,
Walter Isaacson book, the thing that hit me the most is what he tries to do is to solve every problem from the ground up using fundamental principles.
correct.
In other words, and I think that's what a lot of this is. Because I'm an analyst and I tend to do this by nature.
Right.
A lot of times we do things, the reason we do them, we don't know why we're doing them the way we're doing them because somebody just gave us this job and that's just the way everybody does it.
And some of it goes back to the 50s. It's post-war stuff.
Right. So, and when we have these job titles and levels and job architectures that have been left around for many, many years, I think there's a lot of rethinking that. And it takes creative thinkers initially to go to the bottom up instead of from the top down. And I think a lot of the innovative ideas and how we use AI are going to come from line people, not from you know super duper designer types.
Right,
Um, I would imagine if you went to a McDonald's store, I don't know what happened in the Kellogg example, but if you went to a McDonald's store and you asked the people working in the store what would make things easier for you,
right.
probably some really creative young people would say, "Hey, why don't we just let people walk in and give us their order before they come, so we don't have to stand there and listen to them
Yeah.
browse through the menu for 5 minutes."
And we can't hear them anyway, and it's loud. Yeah. What happened to that, by the way, is the team that basically said no. New CEO came in and fired most of them. So eventually they brought in a digital mindset. Anyway, I think it's tough doing what you're doing. It's like, how do you get people to shift? And there's never been a technology. So AI, no matter what version of it you want to use, customer facing, efficiency on the inside, there's just never been a more impactful technology that's not, you know, just kind of a trend or
Well, a
a
good
hyped up thing
example.
that's going to go away. It's not going to go away. It'll go through phases, of course, but
Yeah, and I
it's
think I think an example of the human side of this is we have a lot of banking customers, financial services customers. So I was at a big bank a week or two ago,
yeah,
and they're building an agent for the wealth managers, the relationship bankers. It's a big
right,
job, and you're dealing with high wealth people, or maybe just people who want to manage their money better. And that's been a very handcrafted, personal um, job. But now they have AI systems that can look at a person's portfolio and risk tolerance and make many, many, very intelligent decisions that the human may not make. But they don't want to give that system to the customer directly because they'll lose the personal relationship. So they're going through this agonizing experience of building the AI is already built. And now they're trying to figure out how to retrain the relationship bankers or the wealth managers to use it effectively, and add the human side around it. I think that's going to happen a lot. I think that is a perfect example of a type of scenario that's going to happen in sales, customer service. Like, I've done sales a lot of my career, and you go into Salesforce and you look at a bunch of stuff, and then you look somebody up on the internet and you try to figure out what they bought from you last, and pretty much you've spent 2 hours trying to get ready for the sales call. I mean, the system's just going to tell you in the first 5 minutes, here's the 10 things you need to know about this person. Here's the thing that they're most likely to buy.
yeah,
Now you have to decide what to do with that information because you didn't have it before. I think there's going to be lots and lots of scenarios just like that.
yeah. It's disconnected and overwhelming right now for most. We've just created. I mean, even look at your phone. How many apps are on you? I'm going to tell you, I have too many on this phone, but there's no reason to have an app for everything. So, including McDonald's, there could be a lot
Right.
of simple consolidation there. Get me this, get me that. Um, let's talk about your book, if you don't mind. I'm going to hold up
Sure.
a copy here for those of you that aren't on the video feed. But I liked the 7 principles. When I read them, they just sound our secrets. They sound simple, like teams and work,
Hmm.
not job, and coach, not a boss, and culture, not rules, growth, not promotion, purpose, not profits was one of my favorites I like to talk about. And the employee experience, not output. Some CEOs would argue with that, of course, but it's like it's like the first one feeds the second one. But
Right.
yeah, what are some of your favorite things there when you come into a company and say you need number 4 and number 7, or how does it work?
Well, the problem that every company has is they have financial goals and market share goals and shareholders or stakeholders. And so
A lot
one
of
side,
KPIs. That's right.
yeah, or
Yeah,
KPIs, and so one side of the business is, execution and sales and product and, time to market and all that. And then there's the how. How do we do that? Do we make people work harder? Do we fire the people that aren't performing? Do we move people around and get them out of the job that they're underperforming? Well, what the book is about is my experience of having done this for 40 years, is that execution is very much dependent on these 7 things: on your ability to develop people, on your ability to coach people, on your ability to redeploy people, on your ability to inspire people with a mission or a purpose, on your ability to make people more productive. Those are the enablers of execution. They're not separate, nice to have, oh, if we have time, we'll do some of this other stuff. And the reason I, wrote that book is that what I've experienced over the years, and I tend to talk to mostly larger companies who've been around for a while,
right.
is the companies that last decades. And I don't, because the first decade you can sort of do a lot of things that don't work, but just kind of power through it. But the companies that last multiple economic cycles, multiple business cycles, multiple technology cycles, usually do those 7 things really well, because the people are the asset that's the most important of all. NVIDIA's asset isn't the chip designs. It's the people that have built the chip designs and their ability to build the next chip designs. I suppose you could say an oil company, they do have assets being the oil in the ground, but their ability to find the next field or to produce it or to market it or to refine it well does come down to human capital. So, to me, it's very, very simple because I'm focused mostly on HR.
Right.
That was really as I was trying to write the book for non-HR people about these management practices, and it was a struggle because I have so much HR stuff in there.
Right.
There's a
It's
million
heavy.
books on this. I'm glad that it's worked for you, Dean, because I get a lot of good feedback on it, and in some sense, when I first started writing it, it was almost 5 or 6 years ago, and some of those ideas were a little bit new. Now they're all becoming fairly common discussion items.
And what these CEOs have noticed, because I talk to the same people you are, but I'm just talking about the growth and the outside. You're talking about, okay, you got to bring everyone along with you. It's just
Right.
like so important. But what they've noticed is the old systems are broken. And I mean, that's where Reboot came out. It's like you have to continually reboot your company yourself, whatever it is. But I don't see enough of these big global 1000s doing that. In other words, are you just, you said re-engineering, I'll call it
Well, they actually, I'll
re-architecting the
tell you,
jobs themselves. There's
I
still a lot of bullshit jobs, like in financial services. That's the name of the book, I
there are
guess.
more and more companies doing it than I've ever seen before. Like, we were on the phone with Bayer, the
That's
big pharma
good.
company. They're
Yeah.
reorganizing massively. I was at HSBC a couple of months ago. They're doing it. Standard Charter's doing it. Mastercard's doing it. A lot of traditional, large, well-known brand companies are redesigning their organizations under the covers as fast as they can to be more adaptive, and they're running into the same all these 7 things. I mean, they're sort of fundamental to that. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think there's more. It's hard to do because a lot of these companies are also, they're mergers of many, many other companies. So there's lots of silos within.
E-
But
Exactly. And when people hear our audience hears that, they're thinking of reorganizing. That's not what Josh is talking about. New CEOs come in and they reorg stuff. That's all they do. New people, new leaders. But we're talking about re-architecting the actual job, eliminating jobs, creating new actual job descriptions to get to the boring level of it, right? It's like, we don't need someone doing estimating anymore. We don't need someone doing that. What we need is a coach, a referee, and
Well,
this.
and what gets in the way of redesigning jobs is when people are afraid that if their job is redesigned, they're going to get laid off.
Right.
So these cultural issues of growth and coaching are fundamental to what we call becoming dynamic. Dynamic companies are dynamic because the people feel empowered to take on new roles and that they will not be threatened by change. If the people feel threatened by change, they're going to resist it. They're going to hold back. They're going to make it really hard, and the company's not going to perform as well. So the
Yeah,
cultural aspects are really important.
well said. And there's this flywheel effect, to go back to our other topic on AI, is the competitiveness out there is moving so quickly, the users of the technology, the actual enterprises, not the vendors, that you can actually move your market position faster than ever before. You can actually have an impact by doing. I mean, you mentioned Elon Musk. So, XAI basically, within months, they've moved ahead and replicated a lot of the
Yep.
stuff that it took OpenAI years to develop, because OpenAI was first. And now so this flywheel effect it's mind-boggling to some C-suite leaders, because they're like, we're not even sure if we should be in this market anymore, or maybe we should be up at the top of the funnel rather than the bottom. How do
Well,
we
there's another,
reposition?
Dean, let me throw out another part of this that I think is interesting.
Yep,
Like, for example, I don't know, that Apple car, apparently, that nobody knows what it was apparently a multi-billion-dollar thing. I think the other thing that's different now is small teams tend to outperform big teams. I mean, AI does actually give small teams the ability to execute and develop things very, very fast.
yep,
And so, I don't know how Elon's, I have a relative that used to work for Tesla. I think one of the things he does is he does allow small groups to innovate and work together very quickly. And he gets rid of bureaucracy,
exactly.
fairly aggressively. And I think that's a lot of what makes great organizations succeed, is breaking problems down into small enough groups that everybody feels like they have accountability for something that matters, instead of being part of this giant organization and feeling like you're a cog, in which case, your innovation and your execution is just lower.
Totally agree. I have this program called Dancing with Startups, which basically does that. But I've even seen that in government. Some of my volunteer work with, like, the NSF, National Science Foundation,
Hmm.
when the little groups are just running circles around the old bureaucratic, whatever, the traditional way of inventing things. They've got these small little, incubators and accelerators that are. So that's true. What are you advising these big dogs on in terms of remote workers and all that nonsense here?
I think there is a steady trend back towards face-to-face work more regularly. I don't think we can, put the cat back into the bag about remote work. It is a very good way to do a lot of things, but I think most people and most companies are coming to grips with the fact that innovation, creativity, um, relationship building, problem solving does go better when you're in the same room with people.
I
There's
agree.
a huge, huge difference in the kind of relationship and discussions you have with people face to face than you have online.
Yep.
And I think we're slowly moving back to a much more face to face culture. But I don't think remote work's going away. I think there's still going to be a lot of remote workers and sales, customer service, marketing, outsourcing. I mean, that stuff's, that's happened and that's going to continue. Um,
I've always been
so
a hybrid guy, and hire the best people you can all over the world. And if you can get them in one of your offices, great. If you don't have one there,
Well, and
you
it's
know,
also up to the managers, the team managers and team leaders to tell people why we're getting together, not just force them into the office to sit around and do Zoom calls from
kind
their
of where I was.
office.
That's kind of where I was going from a leadership responsibility point of view. Yeah, it's like, I assume you're helping them deal with that, because some of the biggest companies are still, they're struggling with it, and they don't know if they should go, authoritarian, or continue to be the
I think
flexible.
you've got to teach or coach leaders on explaining when and why we need to get together face to face, as opposed to mandating it with some policy. Um, because there are, I mean, I think most leaders know this. There are a lot of problems that just cannot be solved online or through one-on-one video calls.
Yeah, exactly. What would have been some of your biggest challenges getting companies to get over hurdles? And I'm sure not everyone's been a success. We don't have to name names, but I find we learn a
I'll
lot
tell
on
you
this
in HR,
program.
well, we spend our time with HR execs and HR leaders.
Yeah,
I think the challenge, I would say 99% of the HR organizations we talk to want to do what we explain to them, but then they don't know how. And sometimes the CHRO is new to their role and they don't feel that they have the authority or the power to push the other execs fast enough. Like, we want to redo the performance management process. Well, nobody's going to, that's going to be a heavy lift. Maybe we should put that off for a couple of years because we're working on this hiring issue. Or we have this, other thing that we're dealing with. Um, I think because human capital issues have become so central to every company's performance, and the job market's been so competitive, and we've had this issue with reskilling, very, very fast. I think most HR leaders have to pick their battles and they have to communicate clearly so they don't look like they're trying to do 50 things at the same time.
right.
Um, and the HR function itself is very complex. I mean, one of the biggest things going on in my world is almost every HR department is trying to redesign itself so it isn't so siloed in HR, where we have a bunch of people in a bunch of recruiters and a bunch of business partners and a bunch of L&D people and a bunch of comp people and a bunch of DEI people, and they're not talking to each other, and they're all promoting their own little thing. Um, there's a stitching together of HR that's happening too. That's really significant. We call it systemic HR, and that's a really important part of this, including AI. By the way, people in HR want to use AI too. So. Um,
Yeah,
those are the kinds of challenges. I find, even though people outside of HR probably don't realize this, all of the HR people I talk to are passionate, hardworking, intelligent, creative people. They're just sort of living in a world with lots of legacy ideas and legacy processes and legacy systems to deal with.
yeah. They need to blow it up. I mean, some of them are using AI for. It's almost like a hobby. They're just getting the hang of it and writing some pretty poor job descriptions. But it'll get better. Can we flip it to the outside? What about the people looking for jobs? The second half of this decade's going to be good news, bad news for some people. But what's your advice to this next generation of knowledge workers? What should they be doing to better prepare, position themselves for the best jobs?
Well, the advice that I would give people from my career and my children is you have a long runway. You don't have to become a gigantic super success in the first 5 years of your career. So every job that you find or take should be something that you really are excited about, where you can work in a team of people where you can learn a lot. Because what's going to happen is 10 years from now, you're going to look back at all the things you did and you're going to realize, oh my God, this job that was really horrible, I actually learned a lot about such and such. This job that was great, I actually learned a lot about such and such. So I think because people live so much longer and their careers are so much longer than they used to be,
Yeah,
um, you think about your career as a series of developmental experiences working in the teams or companies that you admire at that point in time. And obviously, you have to find the right job and the right fit and the right manager. Um, that's what careers look like. And, people have multiple jobs at the same time. I mean, we have a lot of people in our company who are part time, who are working for us doing things, and they're doing other things for other companies. And that's great because I can see they're learning things from their other experiences that they're bringing to us.
right.
So I think you have to also really trust your instincts and develop your own sense of self-confidence in the roles that you're interested in applying for. I think hiring managers and recruiters, they don't just look for technical and professional skills. They look for people that are um, confident enough to take on new challenges, because every job is different. Even if you think you know exactly what the job is, no, it's actually not that. There's something different about it. So you're going to be learning. Those are the kinds of advice I give people. And I try to give people a lot of a pep talk, because it can be very frustrating to be out of work and to be looking and not being able to, get the right fit. Um, and in my career, I've had, maybe 10 different, completely different jobs, maybe 15. Some of them, I wasn't expecting them to be any good at the time. And then I look back at them and like, you know what? There was a reason that happened. There was a reason I did that job at that company, because I learned a lot from it now in retrospect. So that's what I try to do, is give people just a sense of self-confidence that there is no perfect position. And then there is no, kind of lightning fast track to the top. At least not in my case.
Yeah. Thanks, Josh. Appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you, Dean. My pleasure. Great talking to you. Lots and lots of interesting things going on here.
You've been listening to Josh Bersin on the Reboot Chronicles with Dean Tobias. Please subscribe or check us out at rebootchronicles.com.